Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar of 2025, Arts and Community Cohesion. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mital Lyons Warren, and I use she, her pronouns. I am the local engagement manager at Americans for the Arts. I'm a white millennial woman with curly brown hair with my sides shaved down, and my hair is up in a bun. Today, I am wearing a blue collared shirt under a green cardigan. I have on glasses and dangling purple earrings, and my background is blurred. I am rooted in community in Northeast Washington, D.C., the unceded lands of the Piscataway and Honkatonk people. We are sharing visual descriptions in this webinar as part of our ongoing commitment to accessibility. Practices like this are particularly important when you're not sure if any of your audience members are blind or low vision. To select ASL interpretation, please click Interpretation in the Zoom toolbar and select American Sign Language. Zoom-generated closed captioning is also available and can be activated by clicking on the arrow to the right of the closed caption button. I'd like to start today's call by acknowledging the devastating fires in Southern California. Emergencies like these are happening at an increased rate across the world, and as we take moments to breathe and reflect on our own connection to these disasters, I hope you find motivation to continue the important work each of you do to support the endurance of arts and culture in your communities. My colleague Gigi is going to put in the chat 2 links. One is from Arts for LA, that were resources sent out today for those affected, and AFTA's Disaster Preparedness and Response page, which has general resources for you. Today, we are also reflecting on the life and work of President Carter. The National Gallery of Art recently shared some of his remarks from the opening of the East Building of the gallery in June 1978. I would like to share 2 of those quotes that resonated with me today. This building tells us something about ourselves, about the role of art in our lives, about the relations between public life and the life of art, and the maturing of an American civilization. As the Capitol symbolizes our belief in political democracy and civil freedom, the National Gallery symbolizes our belief in the freedom and the genius of the human mind, which is manifested in art. Last fall, I was so proud to launch the local arts agency Wayfinder alongside my amazing colleagues. This living interactive database of local art agencies across the country has turned an internal Excel sheet into a public tool. The LAA Wayfinder uplifts the position of local arts agencies as thought leaders and policy and program creators on a wide range of topics and issues. It's already facilitated information sharing between local art agencies and within the field, as well as helping community leaders and those outside the arts to identify their local arts agencies. I hope you can join us later this month on our LAA Wayfinder webinar on the 29th. This is the latest addition to the Arts Impact Explorer, a case-making powerhouse tool for the field. After today's call, check out the Arts plus Community Cohesion fact sheet for more local projects, research, and other resources on the topic. In December, Americans for the Arts published the 2023 Americans Speak Out About the Arts report, which reveals something you all already know. The arts are deeply valued across this country. An overwhelming 86% of Americans believe arts and culture improve their community's quality of life. And even more striking, 72% see the arts events as safe spaces to share diverse ideas, and 39% report changing their perspective through an arts experience. We can usually agree on where we want to land. It's aligning on how we get there that can sometimes be challenging. And the arts repeatedly show to be a truly nonpartisan solution. Despite this broad support, challenges persist. Only 51% of Americans feel everyone in their community has equal access to the arts. And similarly, while 92% believe every student should receive a quality arts education, only about half think students currently have enough opportunities to experience it. These data points underscore why your work as advocates are so critical. Local arts agencies play a vital role in addressing these gaps. They connect artists, creatives, and culture bearers with communities, develop programs that reflect local cultures, and serves as catalysts for inclusion. Initiatives like Make Music Day are just one example of how the arts can bring people together in innovative, joyful ways. The arts also offer profound benefits for individuals and collective well-being, from improving mental health to creating economic opportunities. The evidence is clear. Investment in the arts is an investment in stronger, healthier, and more vibrant communities. In this hour, we'll explore how you can harness the data and insights from this national study to strengthen your local advocacy efforts. You'll also hear inspiring stories from local arts agencies and state arts partners who are using the arts to shape connective, inclusive communities. And by the end of the session, we hope you leave with actionable tools, fresh ideas, and renewed motivation to champion the arts in your community in 2025. So once again, thank you for being here, and let's dive into this important conversation. I'm really excited to bring on Aaron Friedman from Make Music Alliance to talk about Make Music Day. Aaron?
Hi, Mital. Thank you so much. And thank you to Americans for the Arts for hosting the session. I'm going to share my screen here. And is that working? Yes. Okay. So my name is Aaron Friedman. I'm Executive Director of the Make Music Alliance. We're the group that coordinates Make Music Day in the US. I'm a middle-aged white man with short hair, with a blue shirt and a blue sweater. So I just want to start with an overview of where Make Music Day came from and what it's all about. So in France, in 1982, a new government took office that decided to rethink the way that arts were experienced in the country. For centuries in France, the monarchs, the governments had promoted all of these classical art forms like opera and ballet, but they asked themselves, what about everybody else? You know, could they create an event where everyone feels welcome? So in their first year in office, on June 1st, Jack Lang, who I have in a photo here on the top left, wearing a necktie, made an announcement and said, okay, 3 weeks from today, we invite everybody to come outside throughout the country and play music for half an hour on June 21st, the first day of summer. And doesn't matter where you live, you can come out anywhere you'd like. We're the government, we're telling you it's okay, don't worry about permits, go out and just make music. And you can see in the photo, there's a sign at the press conference here that says Fête de la Musique, and it's spelled in two different ways. One way means festival of music, but the other way means make music. So that was really the idea. And with almost no notice, with just 3 weeks and just a couple of press conferences, on June 21st, hundreds of thousands of people started showing up in the streets. And they didn't just show up for 30 minutes, they were there all day. I brought a couple of photos. One has an accordion player who came to a cafe and just started playing. No one invited them necessarily, but they just thought, well, this is the spirit of the day. Let's just start making music. A folk group in the top right here was playing on the street, and they decided, well, let's just have people dancing in the street. Why not? The classical musicians didn't want to feel left out either. And in the lower right, there's a photo of a harpist in a park with a flute player and other musicians who thought, well, you know, everyone is supposed to make music. That includes us too. 42 years later, this event is actually a national holiday in France, still called the Fête de la Musique. And when I experienced it for the first time in Paris, it was basically like Halloween. No one is in charge, but everybody knows what to do. You can just come up with your own creative way to make music in public. The photos I brought here show, you know, a guy playing, I guess, a small clarinet while a sort of group of elderly women do some kind of circle dance in the background. I'm sure that no one asked him to do that. He just thought, you know, let's bring some music outside. There was a Brazilian samba band here on the upper right-hand corner that was playing in another park. On the lower left, you'll see a group of amateur rock musicians. The drummer has an AC/DC t-shirt. You know, there's a woman singing. And they've actually set up in the street instead of on the sidewalk, because on this day, you know, why not take over the country with music? That's the whole idea. And I've also brought another photo of, you know, some amateur older singers who just wanted to come out and, you know, make this a day when they could be part of it too. So in France, like any holiday, it's hard to get a handle on just how large it is and how many people are taking part, but they've done telephone surveys, and about 7% of the population says that they actually make music in public that day. And 64% of the public says that they will go outside and wander around and experience the music. Overall, there are perhaps 180,000 events. Maybe only 10% of them are publicly advertised, but people are just coming out and doing it. It's remarkable that this has really spread to a lot of other countries now. Italy has been doing it for some time. Everyone collects statistics in slightly different ways, but they had 19,399 musicians registered last year to say, yes, I'm part of this. Here's my event in one of 779 cities and villages. China has a more top-down approach, but they had 15,000 performances this last year on June 21st across 200 cities with 155 sort of coordinating partners in different parts of the country. Brazil has been doing Make Music Brazil for a number of years. This year they had 600,000 participants, many of them in public schools. So they had entire school districts involved where part of the curriculum was to have a concert, have a final end of the year recital on Make Music Day. I've also included some photos of brass players in France, rock band in Italy, traditional Chinese, can't think of the name of the instrument in China, with these young girls playing kind of sitar-like instruments, and then some singers in Brazil wearing school uniforms. In the United States, I started this event initially in New York City in 2007, and today we have 141 cities that are organizing citywide or countywide or sort of regional Make Music Day events. In 2024, we had 5,304 free music making events around the country at over 1,500 venues. My apologies, this map that I'm showing now on the screen shows all of the cities from 2023, I think. There are a bunch missing from 2024, but I think you can see that there's quite a bit of activity around the Midwest, around Wisconsin, the East Coast, around Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, a lot in Texas and California, Pacific Northwest, and South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, lots of other places. So, I'm really kind of pleased to see that this is something that's been able to work, not only in France and other countries, but pretty much all over the United States in very small communities and very large ones. We'll have the other panelists talking soon about some of the details about exactly how this works in some parts of the US, but I wanted to try to sum up what the whole concept is overall. So first of all, as you can tell, a huge part of this is that it's a participatory event. There's no limit on who can play, what they play, or where they play it. Especially for amateur musicians who are sometimes nervous about playing an instrument in public. This is a day when you can perform freely without feeling self-conscious. It's, again, like Halloween. If you're dressing up as a crazy cowboy or something, you might feel perfectly at ease on October 31st because there's safety in numbers. Everyone else is dressing up too. We use a kind of matchmaking system in each of these US communities. It's kind of like an internet dating site. People can sign up and say, oh, I would love to participate. Here's who I am, or here's the location that I have. And that process creates a public schedule and facilitates the permits that are sometimes required. But it's still a radically uncurated event. Absolutely anyone can sign up and do it. Even if you don't have an instrument, we have a lot of national partnerships to provide free drumsticks for bucket drumming, harmonicas with harmonica lessons. So participatory is big. The free part is also crucial for Make Music Day because if everything is free, audiences feel no pressure to stay if they don't like a particular artist. They can just wander around to discover unfamiliar music risk-free. So you don't have a situation where people are complaining that they bought tickets to a show they don't like. It's really something that becomes much more relaxed and spontaneous. And musicians feel no pressure. They can do a short set or a jam session or a recital with their students or a group lesson or open rehearsal, anything they want. And I just want to be clear about this, that artists and venues can and do make any financial arrangements between themselves that they would like. The important thing is that the concerts are public and free to attend. So again, like Halloween, some venues will hire professionals to put together a haunted house or professional makeup artists, but anyone who loves to dress up can do their own thing and have a good time. Also, because the events are free, it's natural that they would happen in untraditional cost-free venues. So parking lots, playgrounds, cafes, sidewalks, your own front porch. These are very accessible spaces. And it also means that as audiences are exploring concerts on June 21st, they're getting to know their own community and the musical scenes and spaces that they might have overlooked. Finally, it's always on June 21st. And that's typical of holidays. It's, always October 31st or February 14th. You don't have to guess what day Christmas is going to be next year. And the same for Make Music Day. And because it's the summer solstice, it also has that kind of extra feeling of throwing open the doors on the first day of summer and this kind of exuberance that comes with that time of year. So hopefully that gives a kind of general sense of what this is about. And I'd like to pass this over now to Kara to tell us about what's happening for Make Music Day in North Carolina.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Maital, and everybody for this opportunity to talk about North Carolina and what we're doing here. My name is Kara Leinfelder. I'm the Director of Business Development for the North Carolina Music Office. I am a middle-aged white woman with long black hair, and I have on a black sweater and black glasses. I identify by she, her pronouns, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land we're on here in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, as belonging to the Lumbee, Catawba, and Tuscarora tribes. And I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. I always panic that I'm going to forget how to do this at the last minute. Here we go. So our Make Music Day event in 2024 was spearheaded by the North Carolina Arts Council. And the North Carolina Arts Council falls under the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, where the North Carolina Music Office is also housed. And the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources manages the cultural, historical, and natural assets of the state from A to Z. So from aquariums to zoos, parks, museums, and everything in between. The department has historically supported the state's music assets, and it formalized these investments through the Come Here NC initiative in 2019, which was originally housed under the North Carolina Arts Council. The North Carolina Arts Council launched its work in 1967 as awareness of the importance of arts to all citizens was becoming a national movement. Since then, the arts in North Carolina have come to be valued as one of our state's most durable and productive assets. After decades of vigorous work, experimentation, and refinement, our state's arts infrastructure reaches into all 100 counties through one of the most highly developed and effective networks of local arts councils in the nation. On this slide, we have a mural. We have a musicians mural trail that includes multiple musicians with North Carolina roots that is available for more context on our North Carolina Museum Office website. I will also add that the arts councils in North Carolina, there are 75 total county arts councils, and that's who we worked with for Make Music Day. They managed all the programming, all of the marketing, all of the logistics, connecting artists. They really put in the work, and I'm really proud of them for doing that. Make Music Day offered the state an opportunity to use the event as the segue into opening this music office, which is a huge feat for our state. There are only 4 music offices, statewide music offices in the country. So we're one of those 4 now. So we use the opportunity of June 21st and celebrating music in North Carolina and its rich and deep roots to launch the music office by executive order of Governor Cooper. On this slide, you can see that Governor Cooper at that time, surrounded by several of my colleagues as he wrote this executive order. And we had music in the mansion that day. We had fiddle players also pictured here. And we had some jazz music. And actually, one of our jazz performers was in France when Make Music Day was founded. So that was a nice connection. The launch strategy included several years of stakeholder engagement for the music office, evaluation of best practices, formulation of initial proposal, followed by a program budget and strategic framework. All of these things were able to be brought into light into the community through Make Music Day last year. So it's a very exciting day for all of us. The next slide just kind of covers a general timeline of how we got here. As I mentioned earlier, the North Carolina Arts Council was the where the Come Here and See brand, which was the music initiative launched in 2019 by the governor to celebrate North Carolina music for just a year, became so successful that we have continued with Come Here and See. And now it falls under the North Carolina Music Office as the forward-facing brand of the office. And this year, that will be sort of the leading entity for Make Music Day. So we're shifting away from the Arts Council. They'll still work with us. We'll still be deeply ingrained in the statewide Arts Council structure, and they'll be the ones facilitating that work. But the actual event will be managed by the music office and Come Here and See. So this past year, Make Music Day in North Carolina we engaged 13 of our 100 counties. We had 800 artists perform with 9,000 attendees. Those spaces that we used across the state ranged everywhere from downtown streets and open spaces, state and local parks, museums, music and record stores, private homes, YMCA and community centers, schools and universities, theaters and performing arts centers, local businesses and breweries, and local banks. This picture here on this slide is a gentleman playing the violin outside on the street. There was plenty of that. We were hoping to increase a lot more of that street performance, busking element to 2025. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us as we increase the number of counties that participate in Make Music Day to really lean into that and that original vibe in France that we were just talking about. There were multiple partners that jumped right into this, which was really exciting. Because I think sometimes when you think about music being supported or a part of any sort of like government agency, it's kind of like, wait a minute, what? And we've heard a lot of that from artists as we've opened the music office. There's a little bit of trepidation of government agency really being involved in this sort of like cultural and creative space. But we had such a great response from municipalities across the state who absolutely wanted to be a part of it, provide support, provide space. We had several counties that the mayors were present for the entire day, moving from venue to venue and performance to performance. Tourism boards, local chambers were involved, schools and churches. News outlets were quick to jump in, and I anticipate we'll have a lot more news outlets get involved this year as we expand those efforts and increase the number of counties involved. Libraries were great. They're a great resource here for us and other nonprofits and music organizations. The photo pictured here on this slide is from Statesville, which had a great, they just had a beautiful day planned, lots of outside performances and lots of activity on the street. The way in which we facilitated, or those arts councils facilitated programming, ranged in it hit basically every demographic age-wise, which was really lovely. We had one county report that they had people from age 3 to 95. I'm sure we had younger and older folks at Make Music Day events than that, but it's just lovely from the point of accessibility to know that so many people, different ages, different demographics, are able to come out and enjoy music for free for an entire day. So the photo pictured here in this on this slide is from Make Music Day Mayberry, which is Mount Airy. And we saw everything from jazz to old time to gospel. There were very formal venue performances, lots of local venues that were able to be involved and have that, you know, interior space to allow for more scheduled sort of, like I said, formal performances. Lots of open mics and jam sessions. There was a concerted effort in Surrey County to provide workshops, which was awesome because it brings that whole educational component that we love to see. And they did not just instrument and voice, but they also had luthier lessons, teaching people how to string instruments, which was incredible. For children, and well, not just children, because I would love this, instrument petting zoos where you can experiment and play different instruments and get used to those. Instrument making and giveaways. We had a lot of fun with people taking the kazoos that were provided. The drum circles with the buckets were very popular because of the drumstick giveaways. That was a lot of fun. We had a lot of different ages and participating in that activity. Songwriting in the round. And we were able to provide student and youth showcases to sort of integrate not just seasoned local artists, but up and coming, young, emerging, or new artists. And to have that range, I think is really a great thing to talk about and to reference back when you're planning for the next year. And we also had people come over from Virginia and Georgia. Like we had some people coming across state lines for Make Music Day events. So that was really exciting to see. And just a quick overview to give you an idea of how government is going to support music kind of going forward. It's through these main mechanisms. So this slide covers our functions, our focus. Initiatives like Make Music Day allow the North Carolina Music Office to support accessibility to music and culture in the state. The office coordinates and supports state music programming, facilitates artist and creative economy development opportunities, partners on festivals and events, and advocates at the state, regional, and federal level of investment and recognition of the strong music cultural assets of the state. And Make Music Day is a perfect case study for us for this work to focus on those 5 elements. And I will add also that we are heavily involved with now this new National Music Office partnership, which is a conglomeration of those 4 statewide music offices, along with some more localized municipality music offices that will allow us to sort of deepen our conversation about how government can support music and creative economies through tourism, through events like Make Music Day, and amp those up, make sure that music is always accessible and inclusive and connecting those dots across the state. North Carolina is really lucky. We don't just have one anchor city that's like the music spot. We have a statewide full of communities to connect and to amplify during this time period. So we're super excited about this year, and thank you all for the opportunity for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Kara. And I know that you might have to jump from the call. So if you have any questions for Kara, please put them in the chat or for what Aaron shared earlier. There's already one in there, Kara, that I know Aaron's going to type an answer for, but feel free to go in there as well. Thank you so much. And I think this is a really good, we're starting really broad in this webinar and we're moving down. So we started with that national perspective. The arts are really great and they bring community cohesion. Kara gave a great overview of how from a state level, you can really build coalitions around this and have it across the state that can be so helpful. And I'm really excited to pass it to 3 local art agencies who are putting on Make Music Day in their country. I guess we'll start with Karin. I was going to say Rita, but Karin, we're happy to start with you from the Madison Arts Commission. Someone pinned you, so you got chosen.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to start us off on how Make Music Madison is making a difference.
Great, I'm happy to. Hey, my name is Karin Wolf. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a Gen Xer. I have red hair, which I'm wearing down today. I'm wearing an olive green turtleneck dress with silver hoop earrings and a moonstone teardrop shaped pendant. I'm the arts administrator for the city of Madison, Wisconsin. And Madison is located on the ancestral land of the Ho-Chunk Nation. It's a place that they have called Dejope since time immemorial. And there are 11 other Native nations within the boundaries of Wisconsin. A legacy of colonialism, forced removal, genocide, and other traumatic events are part of Wisconsin's history, and they impact all of us to this day. And so in my work as an arts administrator, I try to honor the legacy of resistance and resilience of these stubborn nations. I also want to thank AFTA and Aaron for both inviting my thoughts on this day and for supporting and championing this kind of magical holiday that we so enjoy. Madison has participated, I think this summer will be our 12th year. But it's been over a decade. So we know that for over a decade, when people wake up in Madison, Wisconsin on the longest day of the year, and they step outside their doors, and sometimes even inside their doors, they get to hear it. But that's not as happy. But anyway, as soon as they leave their homes, they're very likely to run into some music that day. And it's like the previous speaker talked about. I mean, it might be a jazz quartet in a park, or children learning harmonicas at the Children's Museum, or classical guitar music floating out of a sidewalk cafe. hip hop artists performing at a community center patio, something like that. There's hundreds of examples because there's hundreds of concerts that day, and it's just the entire city becomes a stage for an extraordinary day. So that's the picture. When Michael Rothschild brought this idea of creating Make Music Day to me, he had just returned from a trip to New York City where he experienced Make Music Day there. And he was just so impressed and inspired. And he wrote to me and said, "Why doesn't the city do this?" And I said, "Well, we can do this." I had it was on my radar because people had experienced Fête de la Musique and wanted, that to happen in our city. But what I told him is it would really require a champion and some volunteers, and I cannot lift this by myself. And fortunately, he had just retired as a professor and was ready to take it on. And I believe he worked over full time that year to pull it off. I did devote a significant portion of my work plan that first year where we started it, and then they evolved into their own nonprofit. But the timing was really perfect because our then mayor had already talked to me about can the previous mayor had been more like central city focused, develop the downtown, and then this mayor came in with, no, let's work on neighborhood levels. And so he wanted me to come up with arts ideas that would activate citizenship and break down barriers for participation in both the arts and in government, on a neighborhood level. So Michael's timing was perfect, and there was energy, and with the mayor's blessing, I was able to garner other support for it, and we could make it happen. And to this day, the city is a primary financial sponsor of the event. Anyway, so and prior to that, so Madison, I know all cities do this, but Madison thinks they're unique in having these festivals in the summer. We have long, cold winters, and then in summer we have all these music festivals that are free of charge. They're not free to put on, of course. And, there's usually big beer tents and, big stages, but there's this huge divide between the performer and the audience. And again, we wanted to flip that on its head and create something on a neighborhood level that could be performed by anyone and enjoyed by everyone, which is a tagline we still use that a clerical staff came up with for me in that first year. And I love it. Performed by anyone, enjoyed by everyone. So last year, I was looking at the final report in preparation to speak today, and I noticed that MMM hosted 602 performances across 194 locations or venues, and we're a city of around 250,000 people. So you can do the math and see that Make Music Madison is one of the most participatory Make Music Day celebrations in North America. And the numbers are exciting and we like to show them off, but that is not what we're after or what started this or why we do it from a city perspective. From a city perspective, we're looking at creating community cohesion. There's no auditions, there's no tickets, there's very few barriers to entry, if any. But the professional opera singer and the teenage garage band might, they're playing on the same day and they might have equal billing, or the retired piano teacher, the aspiring rapper. It's the same platform. So music flows from retirement communities, breweries, porches, parks. There's even a boat that goes down the Yahara River and ends in Lake Monona, which incidentally is where Otis Redding's plane crashed in 1967, killing him and 4 members of his band. And so when I see music coming off of a big, boat on that lake, I always think of it as a symbolic tribute to the music, that lake deserves it if anyone does. But it's a super celebration, very magical. And, the idea has always been that we're creating, we're increasing equity with this, but it's not just about open doors, and it's about active inclusion. And Make Music Madison learned this lesson really early, that despite this open to all policy, there were certain communities that remained underrepresented. So under the current director, who's this Dynamo Arts Administrator, Mary Rose Eckberg, she's created a few programs to address that. For one, she has a dedicated equity fund and a neighborhood main stage program. And so the equity fund supports underrepresented musicians and supports music in places that weren't signing up for the concerts. The the neighborhood main stage program is similar, where she's supporting the stage and getting the equipment. And then she also has started a musician in residence program that's a year-long position. And that person sort of builds bridges with diverse communities and ensures musicians have all the tools they need to make the most out of their performances. So one thing we look at is, and I think all of us, at least in government positions, can acknowledge that government often presents barriers for artists and for art making. There's things like noise ordinances, performance fees, and like other red tape that creates challenges for musicians, for venues. So one thing Make Music Day does is we're creating our own aspirational bar. People in our community can see what is possible. So when we go and try to talk to zoning about noise ordinances, we have an example of the joy that this kind of more open musical experience can create. So we have a project called Greater Madison Music City, which is like a collective impact project to try to strengthen our music infrastructure. And my colleague Angela Puerta, who's both a musician and a city planner, represents the city on that. And we're able to use this music holiday as something to highlight when we go and have those conversations, because it is very beloved in our community. So, this isn't, I'm sorry here. This isn't just a Madison story. Obviously, we're very proud to be part of a global movement that's happening. And Aaron gave the statistics. I think it's 1,200 cities across 120 countries, and he can correct me. Those are not probably updated, but it's wide and it's global, and we love that. We also love that it's intensely local, because any city that participates does it in their own way, and they reflect their own character and they address their own challenges. And the beautiful thing is it's very replicable. The National Make Music Organization, talks about this as creating a holiday. So it doesn't require a massive infrastructure or huge budgets. It requires a willingness to reimagine what music can look like and who it can serve and how it can create and transform community. So our challenge has been, how can our community, break down the barriers between performance and audience, neighbors, neighborhoods, generations, cultures, between even government and the citizens we serve. And when we democratize access to the arts, we're doing more than creating a music holiday. We're creating community cohesion, attachment to place, opportunities for artists, for venues, and really creating positive social change. So we're very happy to be part of it for so long. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Karen. And I know 7 minutes is nowhere near enough to talk about the full day and the impact. And there will be more opportunity for conversation through email and through connecting with your peers. So I'm really excited to bring on Rita Whitney from the cultural. Oh, Whitney, I just lost your.
I'm here.
There you are. Cultural Alliance of York County in Pennsylvania. So Rita, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Rita Whitney. I'm with the Cultural Alliance of York County. I'm a millennial-aged white woman. I have short gray hair. I'm wearing an orange sweater this afternoon and a round pendant necklace. Here in York, Pennsylvania, we are on the land of the Susquehannock peoples, who we acknowledge, and all of the history that brings with us here. And we are one of the newer, I think, Make Music Day participants here in York County. So my agency, the Cultural Alliance of York County, we were founded as what's called a United Arts Fund. So we don't have a lot of financial support for arts and culture in our specific county. And my organization raises funds to kind of make up for that and give operational funding and grant support, as well as other resources, to artists and arts and culture organizations and nonprofits throughout York County. Because of that, we have a big advocacy arm, as well as we see ourselves as a community convener. And so we are looking always for projects that help bridge gaps between artists and necessary resources, or organizations and important resources for them. We actually began looking at the way events helped create community cohesion as we were rebuilding from the COVID-19 pandemic. This became a really major focus for us. I'm sure all of you saw and felt the effects of that loss of events and collective things to get folks together and into a same room, and in particularly arts and arts organizations that took a very long time to recover and are still working to recover. So we even helped to facilitate grants starting around in 2020 to help facilitate more community gatherings and events within our York City downtown area, because we felt that loss and more divides happening between folks throughout that time. So when we learned about Make Music Day in 2022, it was a perfect fit for our organization to take on. Since we are primarily grant makers and work in advocacy, we do not host a ton of events, but it is one of our main jobs to build a strong platform for our surrounding organizations and artists to stand on. And bringing Make Music Day to York County was really kind of the perfect way to do that, since it enlists many, many folks to take ownership and energy over the events and put them on themselves. So the first year we started in 2022, we had 6 events, 6 whole events that I mostly planned and then got COVID and couldn't even attend. And then the next year in 2023, we grew to 23 events, and I think about 50 participating musicians. And then this past year, we had 74 events in 2024. So we have seen exponential growth over time and are excited to continue that expansion. And I have to say the biggest success point that we've seen is the partnership that we have with a local York County Music Teachers Association, who partnered with us, helps throw a ton of events, brings students in, brings all of their musicians in and downtown. And we see this beautiful mix of professional musicians, student musicians coming out, teaching folks that are just walking by on the street how to play instruments, putting instruments in folks' hands that maybe would not have the access to do that just by being out. We have focused, our initial focus was kind of in our downtown York area, although we do support the entire county. And, but having that really walkable, easily attended moving around felt like the right way to kind of get the whole movement off the ground. Some of our highlights also have been another organization who wanted to get involved actually put out 8 plein air pianos that were donated. Otherwise, they would have been trashed, and they were painted by local artists, put out on the street in lots of different places. And I will tell you, I have a collection of videos. I sat at my window on the 2nd floor and I watched a gentleman from our unhoused population here in York play that piano probably every single day. And it was the most beautiful piano playing that you've ever heard. And just having literal access to that piano being on the street just changed the dynamic of the entire main square that it was on. And we honestly saw that very consistently with our unhoused population really participated quite a bit. And the talent that you would see blew your mind. And it was truly just, oh, it's access. It's equity and access. It really kind of hit that point home of the work that this type of event can do. We had a lot of learning curves to really address. Teaching, no, it was just a plain piano. He was a pianist already. He already clearly knew how to play and just hadn't had access to a piano for such a long time. So we've really had to teach our community how to participate in this celebration, because we have, it's the way you address Make Music Day is a little different than you might throw a different music festival, right? Like Erin said, it being a more of a holiday, a celebration. And so it's taken us a few years to get folks on board with talking about the event and really understanding, like, no, just you show up, you just show up and you play, and to kind of get in with that, a few of the partnerships that we have developed are with our baseball stadium that's just downtown. And we actually now throw a kazoo parade as a part of it, because honestly, anyone can play kazoo. Adults, you really have to teach them. I will warn you that, because if you're an adult and you haven't played a kazoo for 25 years, you've probably forgotten. The trick is you have to hum and make noise, just FYI. So our tourism bureau actually sponsored 1,000 kazoos, and we shared those out with anyone who showed up at our baseball stadium that night. And we will parade down the street from the square to the baseball stadium, and with everyone kind of playing kazoos as our culminating event. So this has been just an incredible experience for us to bring into our town. We have very literally seen the difference that it makes, giving folks the opportunity from our suburban area who maybe doesn't come downtown into the city so much, a reason to come downtown and be in a more diverse area than honestly what they're used to. And vice versa, having some of our folks, educators and music educators we work with all the time, go out into new areas, into libraries and municipalities, to make music. So I'm just really grateful that this is something we are able to do. And it is a huge community effort. No one can do it by themselves, but we just appreciate all the support that we've gotten and are grateful for the success.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rita. And yeah,
Thank you,
I
Jen.
mean, it's those personal stories. As my coworker, Randy Cohen says, no data without stories, no stories without data, right? So those stories are just as important as the changes you're seeing for those within your community. So for our last local art agency presentation, and then we'll go to a very quick Q&A, and any questions not answered will be answered in email afterwards. I'm excited to introduce James Lockridge from Big Heavy World. We've had a municipal city, that was Karen. We've had now a county example, and they're a 501c3, that was Rita. And Jim comes from a untraditional local art agency, what was an art service organization that broadened out, and they actually run the whole entire Make Music Day for Vermont. So he's another really interesting example. And Jim, I'm gonna bring you on. And you're still muted and your camera's off. So hopefully, if you could, there we go.
Oh, thank you. I thought that that would happen by your magic, but here I am.
Here you are.
I have appreciated this conversation so much, and I know I have 7 minutes, so I'm going to talk probably faster than normal and slow enough for our interpreter. It's a fine line. My name is James Lockridge. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the executive director of Big Heavy World, a volunteer-run nonprofit in Vermont, the unsurrendered territory of the Mohican and Abenaki people. I'm a white 56-year-old male with graying hair and a short beard. Today I'm wearing a black shirt with a collar under a plaid green and black flannel jacket. Here's a perspective and a call to action from our experience of hosting Make Music Day for about 10 years in Vermont, involving more than 30 towns. You'll hear some echoes of Karen's aspiration for active inclusion. I've so loved the conversation so far from everybody. It's very re-inspiring. We learned that to bring communities together through the arts inclusively, that music deserves its own advocacy. Make Music Day is a vehicle, a very large forum to assert that inclusion is a shared value and responsibility. And us in the arts community often naturally live this value, but policymakers and authorities who make decisions about distributing resources to artists don't always think in the broadest terms. And here's a short list, 4 things of why I'm putting this at the top of the conversation from my direction. Music isn't traditionally supported equally to visual arts. It's thought of as holding its own in the economy because, and this is just one example, it has access to bars. A civic leader in Vermont pointed this out to say that music artists are supporting themselves, but the earnings of artists in that environment are meager and inequitable. Music's also not included equally in government investments and infrastructure. For us, we see this in resolutions that capture a percentage of funds from city development projects to use for physical art in relation to buildings. And we also see this in the limited, if any, investment that cities make in performing arts spaces for youth or teenagers. Music is marginalized in support for art spaces, especially in downtowns, where economic development campaigns for the arts are often focused, in part because of pressures and the habits of legislatures. Downtowns are where practice and performance spaces for musicians can conflict because of noise with other tenants who are concentrated there. So in Vermont, musicians tend to collectivize in light industrial areas to create practice space outside of the traditional areas that receive art space support. And last, music is a meaningful resource to regional place building or brand building, economic strategies that want to reflect authenticity. Original music is completely unique in its representation of a community or a region. So when people are united in support of all the art forms, then they're practicing inclusion as a value and setting an example to all community members. So I'm saying that Make Music Day can be a platform for messaging to level the playing field for different art forms and for setting an example for valuing inclusion. In Vermont, the pandemic, it atomized our music community. The access to venues was simply cut off. The state's recovery process engaged the art community in creating systems that offered protection from future calamities. And part of this conversation was this outcome that musicians were recognized as small businesses deserving of emergency relief. And that demonstrated that we have to think actively right up to this day about how to actually be inclusive. So you're hearing a bit of a call to action in the framework of Make Music Day from me. Make Music Day brings people together with the potential for a high level of exposure that community cohesion can occur and is occurring, something that we now recognize as a resource for accomplishing resiliency during and after a disaster. So we can leverage the experience of music into a wider public perception of the value of being together, of inclusion. And we can't assume that the values that we think are important are the status quo. We always have to grow a wider awareness and commitment to them. And inclusion implies that diverse people come together, and Make Music Day gives us a chance to be an agent for this, for demonstrating that different people, and we can call them different stakeholders in society, can be brought together if our vision for it is big enough. A key Make Music Day tool for us has been partnerships which help communities achieve their own vision and activate entire networks. When you activate a network through a partnership, the Make Music Day message gets amplified to wider audiences of different kinds, and more creative ideas circulate from different corners of each network that have special sensitivities to specific audiences and participants. And I'm just going to blast through examples of what I'm talking about. As a coordinating organization in Vermont, intending to inspire and help support regional organizations and individual presenters with the tools for accomplishing Make Music Day performances, we've partnered with a statewide network of senior living residences, and they channel Make Music Day information to every one of their activities directors across the state. We partnered with our state parks at the government level, who made the parks free for this day and helped guide presenters to spots that had shelters and electricity. Public libraries at the state level hosted virtual meetings of librarians across the state, creating channels of opportunity for public libraries to participate in their own way, in their own local way. And town governments, there's such a scope of interest in this across the spectrum of town government. Some in Vermont will create arts chapters in their strategic plans, which they have to redraft every 5 years, and some don't. But they can activate main streets and business districts and engage local performers. They have downtown marketing offices, if the cities are big enough, that have their own stages. Arts organizations and annual music festivals, apart from Make Music Day, participate. They have persistent audiences, both musicians and the public. They have experience resourcing and hosting events. And our state arts council even helped channel our Make Music Day in Vermont through Vermont's own marketing, tourism marketing department, very prominent on the website. And in our region of the world, we have an organization that has created an audience of a couple 100,000 through very hyper-localized neighborhood newsletters. And as a sponsor, they made Make Music Day relevant to each little neighborhood all across the state. So if you have access to that kind of resource, you can take advantage of it. So I hope you get a sense of confidence that this kind of friend making and social capital building through partnerships with existing networks is possible where you are. And of course, I've just spouted some value statements that you might or might not agree with about the inequities in how art is supported, but where we come from, it's a very important, it's a prominent political public conversation. So thank you for letting me share. And I'm so happy to be exposed to Erin's overview again. Every time I hear Erin, it's like having sticks thrown on the fire of inspiration. So, and I look forward to being in touch with our other presenters as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Karin and Rita and Erin and Kara, who had to drop off. All of you were amazing. Everyone in the audience is amazing. I'm definitely inspired, and I'm seeing people in the chat asking, how do we do this? And that was actually part of the point of partnering with Make Music Alliance for our first webinar of the year. This is really actionable. You still have time before June to make this happen. And Aaron and Peter and his whole entire team are here. We're going to share their information in the follow-up email, and they're here to help. Believe me, they want to get on calls. They've been on lots of calls with me, and I'm not even doing Make Music Day, but maybe I should in DC. And then also Jim, Rita, and Karin will be available to answer any questions as well as your peers in the field. I think something I definitely heard from everyone is that this is something that happens across the world, right? But each community is a little bit different. It's curated to what you need, what your artists and your creatives and your community is really searching for in 2025. So I just want to say thank you all so much. And before we close, I'm just going to quickly talk about after 2025 programming, which is ramping up. I hope you can join us for our community conversation on arts and mental health happening next week, January 14th at 3 p.m. And then Government Affairs and the Arts Action Fund will be hosting an Advocacy 101 on the 22nd at 3 p.m. That's going to be full of what this new Congress has to offer, including what you can offer them of Make Music Day and other community cohesion programs. And finally, at the end of January, as I mentioned at the top, there is the LA Wayfinder webinar on the 29th at 3 p.m. And before we end the webinar, I would be remiss if I did not invite each and every one of you to join us in this June 11th through 14th for AFTACON in Cincinnati, Ohio. This jam-packed convention is peer-driven content crafted by and for the local arts ecosystem. Our member committee is currently reviewing over 200 proposals for breakout sessions, and they have to pick the 20 that will and please reach out to convention@artsusa.org with any questions. So thank you all again for joining us this afternoon. There will be a very full follow-up email coming, like I said, with all these resources, and we look forward to the conversation continuing. Hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday. Thank you.